All right, we're back. Appreciate you hanging with us. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. That's Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. All right, let's talk a little NFL, D-Gun. J.J. Watt, who was a highly sought-after retired player, hung it up last year after a Hall of Fame career, will be going to CBS. He's going to do studio work for them. He actually messed up his first announcement. Did you see this? Yeah, he had a CBS hat on, and he made the wrong announcement. And then he said it back out saying, pro tip, when you're accepting a new job, you might want to get the name of the company right when you put out a post. So he had a little fun with it, but yeah, it's off to a flying start. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm interested in saying, what does this say? James Harden has to decide to, okay, that's all. Anyway, but he's JJ Watt. He can make all the mistakes he wants.
Right.
And he's not going to be polished. He's not going to be polished, I don't think, right out the gate, whatever they have him doing. But because he's JJ Watt, people are going to watch because of the name factor.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't he say he didn't want to do it full time? He's not committed to full time.
Yeah, I think what they're gonna do is work. I don't know exactly what this schedule is going to be, but he's going to do studio stuff with them, and I don't know that it's going to be every week. But yeah, he's not doing games at least right now.
Okay,
so he'll be in there with who's their crew, Boomer Esiason and all those guys, Cower. He'll be with those guys.
I would imagine though, if you're going to hire him, you want him in the studio every week with you.
I would. I'm sure. Yeah.
Seriously? I mean, that messes up the continuity, especially if he has something interesting to say, if he's colorful off the cuff.
Yeah.
You want him in there weekly. Once you set a studio team, you want the consistency of the team. I'll pick and choose when I decide I want to be. What?
Yeah. I guess when you have that kind of leverage, you could do whatever you whatever you want. I don't know.
I can't wait to see what they're paying him for him to be a part-time employee. I can't wait to see this one.
Yeah, I hear you. But he'll be good. I think about certain guys like Kelsey is going to be able to write his own ticket when he's done. Both of them, whatever they want to do.
Yeah. Oh, no question about it.
For sure.
I think Jason would be more inclined to, if he decides media is for him, to be more local, more so than national.
Yes. Whereas
Travis, to me, he wants to be on a national platform somewhere.
I agree with you. I think it's dead on. All right. So let's dig into a couple things here, Derek. I teased the quarterback thing.
Yep.
Before we went to break. So, the question is, which quarterback has it's inherent that you have pressure on you if you're an NFL quarterback, no matter what. But some are built a little different than others. Let's start with Russell Wilson. So he goes over in the major trade from Seattle to Denver last year, and it's a total disaster. Team stinks, and coach doesn't make the whole year. Russell Wilson's numbers are all down across the board. People questioning him. There was all this stuff about his trainer and his own quarterback coach, whatever. Sean Payton comes in, says we're getting back to basics. We're not doing any of this stuff, and he's got a great track record, obviously, with guys like Drew Brees, et cetera. If he's not first, he's darn near first on my list to guys who have a lot of pressure on them after everything that's gone down.
Well, I have 6 total quarterbacks on my list, but he's definitely number one because he's not put in a rebuilding situation. They have everything that you need to win right now. All Russell has to do is get his act together. You have an offensive guru now in Sean Payton. You have all the weapons you need at running back, offensive line, wide receiver. You have a solid defense to support you. This is on you, Russell. We have been a big fan of yours from afar, and I mean just football fans in general, have been a big fan of yours because of your wow factor season in and season out in big games, your ability to buy time, spin out of trouble, deliver, throwing the football on a dime across your body to your strong side, floating passes over the top of defenders into the bucket of your receivers. We need to see that Russell Wilson again. You didn't have the coach to bring that out of you in your first year in Denver. Denver gave up a whole lot to get you there because they felt you were the missing piece to get them to the Super Bowl. So this is on you right now. And so you have the coach, you have everything you need, pass catchers. The only thing that you can have as a built-in excuse is if you have an epidemic of injuries across the board. That's right. It. Outside of that, it's on you.
I agree with you. I think that's a big factor in it. So, another guy I'm going to throw in there is, and if you just look at his numbers, they're still pretty darn good. But Josh Allen's got a lot of pressure on him because his team needs to get over the hump. He needs to not turn the ball over in the red zone. There's all this weird stuff with Stephon Diggs. Some people say he's got with Allen. Some people say it's not about Allen. Allen's going over the top, praising him and all that. I think Josh Allen's got a lot of heat on him, Derek.
I do too. I think more of the heat is on Sean McDermott, even though McDermott just got himself an extension. I still can't believe that one. Mm-hmm. But if there's 1 and 1A, Josh Allen is 1A. Now, granted, he had a built-in excuse that his mentor left and took a head coaching job with the New York Giants, but you are still considered one of the elite in the game, and you have to come out from under that. If you look at his numbers from 21 to 22, he had less attempts in 22. His completion percentage in 21 and 22 is exactly the same, 63.3%. He threw for 100-something yards less. In both cases, he threw well over 4,200 yards. In terms of touchdowns and interceptions, this is crazy. In 21, he threw 36 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Right. 22, 35 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. That's
what I mean by that. It's not that different, really. But you have to the way a lot of it played out is what's different.
Yes. So there was more to the equation than just the quarterback not carrying the team that extra mile. When you look at other aspect, they lost Von Miller. They lost one of the premier edge rushers in the game, and that sorely affected their defense. But because you are the face of the organization, you carry the brunt of the burden on your shoulder. And he knows it. And he said it this offseason. I have to be much better than I was in 22. Okay, so that's where it starts. You said the right things. Now we expect you to go out and do all the right things.
Yeah, I think the other thing you have to take into account too, they had the whole Damar Hamlin thing too. That took an emotional toll in a lot of ways, Oh
my goodness, yes.
So that's a factor in this thing. All right, so other guys I would throw in there.
I'll throw this one at you.
Yeah,
Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, this is probably his last shot at being a starter, either there or anywhere. And he's trying to stave off two guys. He's got Will Levis and Malik Willis, both, kind of nipping at his heels.
If there was ever a guy who needs to understand that the organization is indirectly telling you they are looking for your replacement in the worst way, is this guy. They spent a 3rd-round pick in 21 on Malik Willis. They come back and spend a 2nd-round pick on Levis in 22. You are definitely on notice. I don't know any other way to put it. And when you look at his numbers across the board, now granted, he only played in 12 games last year, got injured. But prior to that, his best season, you have to go back to 2020 to see his best season. He had 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Since then, he dropped in 21 touchdowns, 14 picks. And then, of course, he only played in 12 games in 22, but he only threw 13 touchdown passes.
Yep.
So the organization is telling you, you're 34 years old now. Father Time is knocking at your door. We have to get younger in a hurry while we still have a chance of being a playoff conversation piece, like right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, another guy I would throw in there, Derek. Did we lose Derek? All right, I don't know. I think Derek, if you can hear me, you're frozen. You guys are still seeing me, correct? All right. So, Tone, why don't you square me up on a 1? All right, there you go. Thank you. We'll try and get Derek straightened out. You guys work on Derek, and we'll try and get that straightened out. So I'll throw another one in there, another name into the ring here. How about Deshaun Watson? He signs the monster deal last year. Controversial trade, controversy all over the place with him. We all know what happened. He was suspended for 11 games. He comes back. The team really had no chance. It was kind of a mess. Any way you look at it, it wasn't going to work out for Cleveland last year, right? But okay, so now he's back. And if you look at what he did prior to the sort of self-imposed, sitting out a year, which he did because he wanted to get out of Houston, but Houston couldn't really trade him because of all the stuff surrounding him, whatever. But if you look at his career numbers in Houston with some teams that maybe weren't necessarily great, pretty good. You go back to the last year that he really was a starter before the sit-out year, which was 2020, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a 70 completion percentage, all darn good. Over 4,800 yards passing. Not bad. The year before, he's 26-12, over 3,800 yards. The year before that, over 4,100 yards, 26-9. I mean, this guy is a darn good player. The problem is, it's a new it's a new team, and the good thing is he had a little bit of time to play last year and get acclimated to the system. But still, I mean, there's going to be a lot expected. You signed a $232 million guaranteed deal with the expectations that he had following last year. I mean, look, there's a lot there to that, and he's got to show up. And if he doesn't, look, he's not in trouble because his money's guaranteed, but Kevin Stefanski's in trouble. The organization is going to catch all kinds of heat for making the trade with him, for setting up the contract the way that they did, for him. I would say he's 100% that guy who's got crazy pressure on him. Beyond that, other guys that do. I mean, Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets and said he basically called a shot before he even got traded. He left what was a pretty good thing for him for a really long time in Green Bay. We'll see if the grass is greener for him. Like, he goes over there with a lot of talent. Garrett Wilson showed you last year, even without great quarterback play as a rookie, what he was all about. He's got a really good running back in Breece Hall, who's coming off an ACL. They're a talented defense, and they're in a position where, especially with Saleh, where I think they need to win this year. But if he wants to kind of pull a Brady, right, and go to a different organization and win it like Brady did with Tampa, well, we're going to find out what Aaron Rodgers made. Look, he's a prima donna. He's a guy that you tolerate a lot of stuff from because of his ability. But that only goes so far. And I think he's got maybe one more year on his deal after this. So you can be that guy, you can be that prima donna, but you better deliver. And he's got to step up here for the Jets. So I would definitely put him on the list. Let's go Lamar Jackson. There was a lot of questions about what went down last year. Was he really hurt? Did he just not want to play? And, we know the whole back and forth with the organization. It looked like at one point he was going to be out of there and he wasn't going to be a Raven, but they come to an agreement and he signs on the dotted line for a lot of money. And, based on that, he's got to go out and play well. And the other problem is, too, he's missed a lot of time. And the question now is, can his style hold up? Can his style, where he's putting his body at risk, I think a lot more than even Jalen Hurts is, or Justin Fields. I think he would fall in the category where we're going to have to see how this goes as his career goes on. But nonetheless, can Lamar hold up, and can the Ravens get back to that promised land that they were, where they got with Joe Flacco? Because I wouldn't sit here and tell you that John Harbaugh is in trouble or anything like that, but eventually you do need to win another Super Bowl, and it's been a while for the Ravens. So Lamar Jackson with the new deal now, okay, you wanted to get paid like a big boy. Let's see what you got here. I'm going to throw another one in there, and this isn't his fault necessarily, but how about Tua? It's going to be a matter of showing that you can stay on the field, and I just worry that if you were dealing with a leg or a shoulder or a back, even, something like that, you get the offseason, you heal up, and, some of it is just bad luck, misfortune, you get rolled up on, whatever. The problem when you're talking about head injuries like that is you're either bound to get hit sort of head on or a glancing blow, or the bigger problem is having your head slammed to the turf, right? I mean, that's bound to happen. And considering the amount of head injuries that he's had in a short period of time, can he hold up? I don't know. I mean, that team is good and they're effective offensively with him and the way that Mike McDaniel has coached them. But without them, and they did a nice job of getting pretty good backups with Mike White and Skylar Thompson. So they went the smart route with him, getting quality backups in place. But still, I mean, their playoff hopes, or like at least a deep playoff run, go out the window if he goes down. And keep in mind, they're in a division with the Jets and, the Patriots and the Bills. It's a very hard division. So he's going to have to bring his A game. How about Justin Herbert? Justin Herbert is in line for one of those massive Jalen Hurts extensions. So is Joe Burrow, but let's deal with Herbert. You watch him play at times and you're blown away. He's big, he's strong, he throws a pretty ball, all those kind of things. But ultimately, whether it's his fault or not, we know how quarterbacks get the blame if their teams don't win. And his team hasn't gone deep. I think it's more of a coaching thing. I'm not a big Brandon Staley fan than it is his fault. But, either way, you're rightly or wrongly, fair or not, you're going to be judged by how your team does. And he's in a position now with, some talent, for sure, some talent on the offensive side when you have Eckler and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. When you have those kind of players, much is expected. I think his offensive line, that was an issue last year. His left tackle got hurt, Rashawn Slater. Other pieces there just aren't, maybe pulling their weight or getting the job done. But, Herbert, it's a big deal. It's a very big season for him, for sure. I'll go Sam Howell. Let me go with the youngster. If Sam Howell doesn't come out of the chute playing well in regular season games, considering he wasn't a super high draft pick, they're not going to be as patient to stay with him as you are with guys who were taken in the first round. And you have so much more of a financial investment made in them. If he plays poorly, if he starts off slowly, you could very well see Jacoby Brissett, because they're not in some big, rebuild kind of mode in Washington. They're looking to try to win right now. So that's he's another guy. And every receiver to a man, I'll give them credit. Every receiver to a man has had his back, and they're trying to get him, trying to give him all the confidence in the world and get him going here. So I would throw Sam Howell in there too, also. So the other one that I would talk about here beyond Sam Howell that I would look at is Justin Fields. Let's show folks that you're a passer. We know you rushed for over 1,100 yards last year, and a lot of times you were running for your life, and it wasn't his fault, okay? It was not his fault. Bad offensive line, lack of weapons, all those kind of things. But now that you have DJ Moore and you have some other guys, some other weapons on that side of the ball, we need to see you be more of a complete player. It's not to say all of a sudden there's pressure on the Bears to be a playoff team. It's not that at all. They're not going to be a playoff team. They're not that good, frankly. But with the weapons that he has, there has to be more of the complete package that you see out of him. I actually like him. I don't think that he's just a runner. If you watched him in college, he wasn't what you would call a scrambler. He didn't come into the NFL with the reputation of being a guy who just took off. That wasn't who he was. I think he did that a lot out of a necessity and showed you crazy athleticism. But this is the year where the staff around him and him, they need to show it a little bit, and they need to get it together in the passing attack. So he would be one that I would throw in there. And then I'll go kind of generic here with the 49ers. Is it Purdy? Probably. But if it's not Purdy, it's Trey Lance and or Sam Darnold if things really go sideways or injuries kick in. All those guys represent their own special kind of pressure. Darnold is trying to show you that he's a guy who belongs to the league, maybe potentially, is deserving of being a starter. He's failed in 2 spots so far, whether it was him or just bad teams, whatever. Then you go to Trey Lance. They traded up to get you. They took you super high. And right now, the leader in the clubhouse is a guy who was the very last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. So you have a lot to show too. And he's coming off an injury. And then you go to Purdy. Purdy, I don't want to say he snuck up on people because he played very, very well. And Shanahan did a nice job playing to his strengths and all those kind of things. But now it's not just the, oh, wow, who's that guy? No, teams are ready and waiting for you at this point. So, and he's coming off an injury, which is a difficult thing. So he's going to have to do a good job on this and really deliver for them. Others that I would throw in there, let's not overlook Jalen Hurts. When you sign that kind of contract and you get your team to the Super Bowl and you're a runner-up MVP, there's pressure. Now, I think he will handle it perfectly. I don't think it's going to affect his game. I think, anything that's happened this offseason or the accolades that are thrown his way, he is not a rat poison guy, as he always will tell you. Nick Saban said there's two forms of rat poison. One is people kissing your rear end, and the other is people trying to rip you down. And I don't think he sways too far either way. I think he'll use some criticism as fuel, as motivation. But I think that as far as the complimentary stuff, I think he puts that aside and just goes to work. But there is pressure on him. I mean, he's surrounded by a really good offensive line, 2,000-yard receivers, Dallas Goedert, good running attack, a good team. There's pressure there. Chuck says, what about Goff? Yeah, I can't argue with Goff. I mean, he had a really good year last year. And I think most people, I did too, wrote him off when he came over from the Rams. And it was sort of like, oh, man, he's in Detroit. That's where quarterbacks go to die. And it wasn't quite great the first year with, not just with him, but the entire team. And then the second year, when the team started to ascend and take off, so did he. And he played great. He really did. He played excellent for him. He's got a sneaky, nice little cadre of receivers and running backs there. Yes, the Jameson Williams thing hurts them with the suspension, but nonetheless, still pretty darn good talent around him. So yeah, he would be another guy I would throw into that category. How about Dak Prescott? When you throw the amount of interceptions and pick sixes that he threw last year, and your team that was 12-5, again, fails to get to the Super Bowl or even an NFC Championship game, and you play for the Cowboys, you have a lot of pressure on you. Last year, 23 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, that is not acceptable. It's really not. And he's got to be better. Dak Prescott, there is no doubt he has got to be better than what he was last year, because there's a lot riding on him. And they add another weapon in Brandon Cooks, and they add another weapon in Derek Gunn, and look what's happening. So he's back. What's up? Hi.
Dude, I have no idea what happened here. I mean, everything just went boom. And then all of a sudden, my daughter and my son, what happened to the Wi-Fi? I had to go reset everything.
Oh, man.
And the thing is, I just upgraded everything through I shouldn't say Xfinity, but I want to say it. I've just upgraded all my modems and everything like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a fickle thing, man. It really is. Sometimes, you just don't know. When you're at the mercy of technology, it can be it can be tough.
I got the high speed everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like I give up.
I hear you. No, I got you. Don't give up. We got you. I think I ran through everybody. The one last one I would throw in there is Joe Burrow. He got to a Super Bowl relatively young in his career. He's coming up on, time for him to get paid, just like Herbert. They're in that same draft class as Jalen. So, there's definitely pressure on him. And he's got a three-headed attack at the receiver spot, which is really good. Arguably the best three receivers total with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. That's a really good threesome. And he's got a good they've done their best to improve the offensive line around him. So, he's got pressure on him because he's also in that very difficult AFC.
Yeah, I think Burrow is at the bottom of that pressure list because early in his tenure, he got to Super Bowl, got to an AFC championship. He's got all the pieces back. I'm not saying there's no pressure. The pressure's not on him. But in terms of quarterbacks with more high volume pressure, I would put him down lower on that list.
Yeah.
Who are some of the names you went through already?
So I ran through Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Tua, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, Sam Howell, Justin Fields, 49ers quarterbacks, and Jalen Hurts.
Okay. All right. So I still have three on this list that you didn't mention.
Sure. Go ahead.
I would start with Baker Mayfield. Now, Baker Mayfield's in a bad situation. He's got two good pass catchers, but offensive line is suspect. The running game is suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And he went from this first-round draft pick now to basically being called a journeyman. So this might be his last go-round in terms of being a legitimate starter. Now, he's in an adverse situation. If he can come out of this smelling like a rose, whether he stays in Tampa and parlays that into a decent long-term deal, there's another team out there down the road that will want his services.
Mm-hmm.
I put Derek Carr in a pressure cooker because the Saints are another team that have everything that you want except the quarterback. Well, now you have the quarterback. And what he hasn't been able to do with the Raiders for years, which is get deeper into the playoffs, now he's got to prove that he can do that with this New Orleans team in a division that's very winnable, and you are loaded with weapons at your disposal to put up impressive numbers. You should easily be in the way they like to throw the ball down in New Orleans. You should easily be in the top 10 in passing yards this upcoming season. And then the other one I put in there has to be Geno Smith. Geno Smith came from out of nowhere and led this team to a winning record. Everybody's talking about Geno Smith. Geno Smith completed 70% of his passes this past season. Parlayed that into a nice little contract for himself. Well, not only did he have two of the premier wide receivers in the game, they go out in the first round and add a third one for him to give him even more weapons. So the fact that you did so well, you finally got that backup monkey off your back to where the organization is invested in you to be a starter. They've given you another potential great weapon to go along with already two great weapons. They've spent money on this defense. You've got to help us find a way to knock the 49ers off that pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are three quarterbacks also that have a tremendous amount of pressure on them this upcoming season.
Would you say that's the toughest position in sports?
Quarterback?
Yeah.
Oh.
His goalie, I don't know how it's an ace pitcher, maybe. I don't know. I would say it's the most pressure-packed and most difficult position in sports. I would
be hard-pressed to disagree with you. A pitcher only has the ball in his hand so many starter X amount of days, a reliever X amount of throws. A goalie, even if he takes 30, 35 shots, a lot of the action is not just constant. When a quarterback steps under center, he touches the ball. When that ball snaps, he's always the second one to touch the ball from the center to the quarterback. He's the one that generates the success or failure in many aspects. Now, if you have a bad offensive line, obviously your passing game is going to suffer because you're running for your life. But for the most part, you step to the line of scrimmage. You have to know what you're seeing across the line of scrimmage. You have to make the audibles. You have to have certain eye contact and little movements that you develop with your receiving core. All right, you generate the flow. Yes, I would agree with you. I would say quarterback is the toughest position in sports. Yeah.
All right, let's do continue our greatest series, Derek Gunn. And today we're doing the San Francisco 49ers. So you take first crack, my friend.
I think, when we started this series, every time we talk about a team, we always say, I think we can agree that so-and-so is the GOAT of that organization.
Yep.
And here you can have a dual argument, but I've thought about this long and hard for a few hours. And I would have to say, when you talk about the GOAT of the 49ers organization, you have to start with Jerry Rice. In terms of what Jerry Rice has done for that organization, comes out of this little Mississippi Valley state. People weren't expecting Jerry Rice to become what he became as a receiver in the National Football League. All he did was emerge as the all-time leading receiver in catches, yards, receiving touchdowns. What else can you say about the guy? It's a 13-time Pro Bowler, 10-time first-team All-Pro. Work ethic second to none. His runs up and down the hill out in the Bay Area is legendary. Takes players up and down the hill with him. I think, for my money, Jerry Rice is the GOAT of the 49ers organization.
Yeah, I you know what? I went back and forth on this one.
Yep.
I'm going to go Montana simply because of the position. It's simply because of the position. Yeah, and it's weird because I think Jerry's the greatest receiver that's ever played without question. And I think you could make an argument that Montana might be number 2 now behind Brady in terms of quarterback. But I'm going to go with Montana for this reason, Derek. 4-0 in Super Bowls as a quarterback. One of those is without Jerry. 3 Super Bowl MVPs, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 127.8 passer rating in Super Bowls.
Absolutely.
Nobody did it better in the biggest spots than Montana. I mean, look, they had 2 Super Bowls where they blew the team out, but they had 2 that were close. And one in particular, the last one that he won, where he had to take them all the way down the field at the end and the throw to John Taylor. So I'm going Montana ahead, just slightly ahead of Rice. And it's simply a position thing in that, again, back to where we just had discussion we were having. I think the quarterback thing is more important than the receiver thing. And it's taking nothing away from Jerry Rice had 197 touchdowns in his career.
Yes.
Insanity.
Yes.
So I'm going to go Montana, then Rice for my discussion.
Joe Montana ran Bill Walsh's West Coast offense to perfection. He also had 32 come from behind wins in his career as well. He didn't have the strongest up. Joe Montana made the dink and dunk quarterback famous.
Fashionable,
He was the master of dinking and dunking down the field before there was a Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go wrong either way. I went back and forth between Montana and Rice, and I decided on Rice. You decided on Montana. We can debate that from now until the cows come home, and I don't think either one of us is wrong, but those two are at the forefront of what the 49ers organization stood for.
All right, I'm curious. I know we're not necessarily ranking these, but if I was going 3, maybe I'm biased because it was like my lifetime, but I went Ronnie Lott. I think Ronnie Lott was just that guy. All right.
Anybody who cuts a finger off
to stay in a game,
Well, not only that, because as the story goes, when he decided that he needed surgery on his finger for making a tackle, the doctors told him in the offseason that if they tried to do a graft, the graft may not take for him to be ready for the next season.
Right.
So this was like a long, arduous process. So he said, cut it off.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he said. Just cut it off. And they're like, huh? Just cut it off. Any man tells you to cut off a piece of one of his digits, that's what you call true grit. John Wayne was in the movie True Grit. Ronnie Lott is the true grit of pro football. There's no question about it. You look at what he stood for. He started out as a cornerback his first 3 years in the National Football League before he moved to safety. And wow, did the 49ers make the right decision when they moved him to safety? Hard hitting, could cover, highly intelligent on the back end of that defense. There's no question. We agree to disagree on number 1. You had number 1. You had a number 1 out of number 1. Right up under that umbrella, definitely Ronnie Lott checks in as number 3. No question.
All right, where would you go next?
I knew you were going to say that. Where would I go next? Let me see here. All
right, I went Steve Young.
I just pulled him out.
Did you?
Yes, I just pulled him out.
I debated T.O. I debated Charles Haley, a couple other guys. I love Roger Craig. I thought about Dwight Clark. But Steve Young, he didn't. There was always the Montana comparison and all that, and the guy was so dynamic with his arm and his legs.
He sat on the bench. Once they made the trade for him, he had to sit on the bench for 4 years.
Yeah,
before he assumed the role of Now, over the time frame where he played in 10 games, while Montana was still entrenched as the franchise quarterback, in a span of 10 games, he accounted for. Now, this is by way of passing and running. He accounted for. Where's that number I just pulled up? I was like, what? 27 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions in a span of 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you remember, also. The first couple of years, he was at the helm of the offense because everybody unfairly compared him to Montana. His playoff experiences were brutal.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that third season, it clicked for him. And I remember, I believe it was the Super Bowl, when they won that Super Bowl against the Chargers 49-26.
Yeah.
When the game was decided, you see him on the sideline and he's doing this.
Yeah.
Pointing with the monkey's finally off his back. Yeah. But Steve Young was a great quarterback in the National Football League, and not He was a great, wasn't the biggest guy, wasn't a big guy.
No.
But he was an accurate passer, and he could run. When he had to take off and run, he could run. But yes, Steve Young, yeah, I have to put up there in the top 5, no question.
Okay. Like I said, the other guys, I think Roger Craig was such a good all-around player that he belongs in any kind of top 10. I think Charles Haley was just an absolute force. You know, Barrett used to always tell us he was one of the toughest guys he had to deal with. And he was a little crazy, you know, mixed in.
Plus, he won Super Bowls, 2 in San Fran, 3 in Dallas.
That's right. And I'll tell you, Bryant Young was an awesome player.
No
question. The guy had 89.5 sacks in his career.
No question. You go back to Roger Craig, you know, he was the first player ever to have 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in a season.
Yeah.
And he was the one that made it famous, the high leg kick when you ran.
He was fun to watch.
He's so high. I used to love watching him. And they always tell you when you're a running back, because I played running back, you know, you got to get low, get your body leverage. He ran upright and high, just like an Eric Dickerson. Dickerson ran up high, you know. Eddie
George kind of ran that way.
Yes, you know. Yeah. When you're a big body like an Eric Dickerson or an Eddie George, that's a little different. Roger Craig was a well put together dude, but he was not like Eddie George big, you know. Yeah. But Roger Craig was a beast for a long time for that organization. And you know what? You're right. Charles Haley had 100 sacks in his career. He started his career as an outside linebacker before he was moved to a defensive end because they went from a 3-4 to a 4-3.
Yeah.
But Barrett is right. Charles Haley, throughout his career, was one of the most difficult edge rushers to deal with in the National Football League. There's no question about it. You know, we always talk about quarterbacks who win 4 Super Bowl rings. Brady, 7 Super Bowl rings. Charles Haley won 5.
Yeah, all he did was win. He was kind of, it felt like he was sort of on that like Dion track where he would go, it would be like Dallas, San Francisco. He's going to win it here. He's going to jump there. And, you know, look, he was great wherever he went. I mean, there are other guys you could throw in there. Dwight Clark did a lot to sort of bridge the bad 49er teams into the new era, had the catch. You know, he's a guy you think about for sure. With
Dwight Clark, as much as I loved him as an athlete and a tight end, he will always be remembered for the catch more so than his body of work.
Yep.
He only played 9 seasons in the National Football League. You look at his numbers, are not wow factor numbers. 506 catches, 67, 50 yards, 48 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Decent numbers, but they're not wow numbers when you stack them against the likes of a Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce, so on and so forth. He was a solid player, but he's more remembered for that one moment in time than he is than his overall body of work.
There's a lot of old school guys too that I feel bad I left out. I didn't have the same knowledge of them that I do the younger guys.
I put Patrick Willis on there.
Oh.
Patrick Willis, in his first 7 seasons, he started his career with 7 consecutive Pro Bowls and 6 consecutive All-Pros.
Wow. That's awesome.
What do you want from this guy? If it wasn't for the fact that he had this severe toe injury, no telling what kind of numbers he's going to put up in his career. But here's another guy, career cut short because of this chronic toe injury that he had. He just got tired of having surgeries on it. I don't even think it was a turf toe. It was something a little bit more in detail than just a turf toe. Mm-hmm. And he just got tired of it and walked away from the game.
Yeah, I you know, that's I think longevity hurts him a little bit, but I also think people think he played like 3 years or something. No, he played much longer than that.
Yes.
And he was great. You're right. He was a great player. There's going to be some people throw Frank Gore in there. Gore did it for a super long time there.
I did. Yeah.
And that deserves some love. It's funny. When I was looking through this, because he came up the other day with the Giants. You know, and you can make a case for Y.A. Tittle. He played there 10 years.
There you go.
You know, and had some good years.
Joe Staley was one of the best offensive tackles to play in the National Football League. You talk about he's one of the first ones that really got noticed as a big man, 6'6", 300 pounds, who was athletic and nimble, quick, strong, all rolled into one. Now it's become commonplace, all these tackles, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", who are athletic, faster, fastest, strong, nimble, you know. But Joe Staley set the bar high for offensive tackles in the NFL.
I agree with John Dickerson. Another guy I looked at is Randy Cross. You know, he was there a long time as their center. Just the building block off of that whole thing, man. He was really good.
Terrell Owens, you have to put him on the list, but you look at his career, which was tainted so much by his off the field antics, disagreements with coaches and teammates. And Terrell Owens was a phenomenal,
great player,
talent.
Yeah.
He was a phenomenal talent in San Francisco.
No doubt. I mean, there's no denying it. I mean, he's a top 5 receiver that's ever played, and most of his years were in San Fran. Not, you know, I mean, Philly was only a year and a half, and then he was just kind of like Dallas and Buffalo and Cincinnati, but his prime years were with the Niners. So you could definitely make a case that he's in their top 10.
Just to show you what kind of exceptional athlete he was, his 15th and final year in the NFL was with Cincinnati. He had 72 catches, 983 yards, 9 touchdowns, and he averaged 13.7 yards a catch. That's all you need to know about Terrell Owens, whether you liked him or not, because of all the negative stuff we saw and heard about him. Terrell Owens is a heck of an athlete.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. He was big and strong and could break a tackle, but also fly past you, run a precise route. Came back from the brokon ankle in that Super Bowl. It was just crazy.
121 yards receiving in that Super Bowl game. Jeez.
Amazing. All right, let's get a timeout in, Gunner, and we'll roll into the final segment. We got a bunch of stuff. We didn't really get to the NBA free agency.
Hopefully I'll be back.
I hear you. Birthdays, movies, we got it all for you. Don't go anywhere. He's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Razor Technology, because the future of work is not remote or in person. It's a hybrid model. In facing this new reality, businesses must reimagine their workplaces to align with preferences and needs of modern employees. Razor Technology helps businesses create a workplace that gives their teams flexibility in choosing how and where they put in their hours. Online platforms for communication and collaboration, combined with secure and adaptable mobile devices, are enabling hybrid meeting experiences that are nearly on par with in-person events, so everyone can feel like they're part of the conversation. Employees with strong social connections with their team report better well-being, higher productivity, and stronger retention rates. Razor Technology helps growing organizations adapt to hybrid environments with industry-leading digital tools and insightful guidance that promotes efficiency and workplace satisfaction. Learn more by calling 866-797-3282, 866-797-3282, or visit them online at razor-tech.com. That's razor-tech.